24 years old, a young transgender man building his life in New York. But for more than a month, he was subjected to unspeakable cruelty, tortured, isolated, silenced, and ultimately murdered. This is the harrowing story of a man who fought to be seen and a system that failed to protect him. It's a story of hate, power, and the quiet strength of a community demanding justice. Sam Nordquist was known for his kindness, humor, and authenticity. Born in the Midwest, he moved to New York seeking freedom, connection, and the chance to live life on his own terms. New York authorities on Wednesday outlined an astonishing story of kidnap, torture, and sexual assault in the killing of Sam Nordquist, a transgender man from Minnesota who was allegedly imprisoned in a small room of an upstate motel for a month before he died. The torment inflicted by the 7 people accused in the kidnapping, described in an 11-count indictment filed in Ontario County Court, included hitting, kicking, punching, inserting an object into Nordquist's anus, starvation, forced consumption of feces, urine and tobacco juice, pouring of bleach on him and duct taping him. The indictment also alleges the forced participation of young children in the assault and torture. The brutality and depravity of the crime, allegedly inflicted on the black transgender man from January 1 to February 2, has drawn national attention, sparked local demonstrations by LGBTQ rights advocates, and raised the question from activists and his family. How could such a terrible thing happen without anyone notifying authorities? The indictment came a day after Nordquist was laid to rest in his native Minnesota. The 24-year-old set out from Oakdale, Minnesota, to Ontario County, New York, in September to connect with a woman he'd met online. That woman, Precious Azuaga, is one of 7 people charged in the indictment with first-degree murder, second-degree murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, conspiracy, and 2 counts of endangering the welfare of a child. She and 3 others, Kyle Sage, Patrick Goodwin, and Jennifer Quijano, were charged with aggravated sexual abuse. In addition, Azuaga was charged with coercion for allegedly forcing children, 7 and 12, to take part in attacks on Nordquist. The 7 are also charged with concealing Nordquist's corpse, which they allegedly wrapped in plastic bags and dumped in a farmer's field. The gruesome details will likely grow as investigators piece together what happened in room 22 of Patty's Lodge in the town of Hopewell, New York, authorities said. The indictment is just a portion of Nordquist's ordeal. Ontario County Assistant District Attorney Kelly Wolford said at a news conference, where she grew visibly upset as she discussed the charges. "It's just what we know now," Wolford said. "The crimes are almost impossible to comprehend," she said. "We'll never know the answer why. Because what human beings could do, what happened to Sam," she said. "We'll never make sense of this case." The 7 people charged: Arzuaga, 38, her son Thomas Eves, 21, Quijano, 30, Sage, 33, Goodwin, 30, Emily Motica, 19, and Kimberly Sochi, 29. All knew one another, some romantically, Wolford said. Records show that Goodwin, a registered sex offender, was staying in a nearby room at Patty's at the time. Goodwin and Sage were both on parole from previous sexually related crimes. All 7 ended up in room 22 at Patty's Lodge, where Nordquist was allegedly held captive, tortured and killed. They forced him to obey their commands, treating him like a dog, Wolford said. The Office of the Ontario County Conflict Defender, which is representing the 7 suspects, declined to comment. Over the last several weeks, LGBTQ advocates from around the country have urged authorities to not rule out the possibility that Nordquist's killing was a hate crime. Wolford said prosecutors elected to charge the 7 people with first-degree murder and not hate crimes against a black transgender man, because that is the heaviest penalty available to them under New York law. If found guilty, the 7 defendants could spend life in prison without parole. A hate crime would make this charge about Sam's gender or about Sam's race, and it's so much bigger, Wolford said. To limit us to a hate crime would be an injustice to Sam. Sam deserves to have his story told in its entirety. Wolford called the alleged coercion of the 2 young children to participate in Nordquist's torture one of the more troubling parts of the investigation. The children's involvement was not previously known. It's heartbreaking. We have a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old who are also victims, she said. They may have been forced to participate, but their lives are forever changed by what they saw and endured in there. When asked if the children belonged to Azwaga and if they were now in state custody, Wolford declined to comment. Patty's Lodge is not being investigated for any wrongdoing, Wolford said. She added that there have not been any witnesses who reported Nordquist's captivity or torture to authorities while he was alive. This is a housing location, she said. It looks like a motel, but these people do live there full time, so what happens in their home is not something that, necessarily, Patty's Lodge is responsible for. Nordquist's mother and sister suggested in previous interviews with NBC News that Nordquist's death was preventable if local authorities had done their jobs. The family said they requested 2 wellness checks on Nordquist with authorities. They also said that Nordquist expressed that he was in danger to a local social services agency. Sam may be alive today if they would have done their jobs, Linda Nordquist, his mother said through tears. After asking New York authorities for help, Nordquist's mother went to her local police department on February 10 and filed a missing persons report, which was forwarded to Canandaigua Police. 2 days later, the New York State Police put out a public notice about Nordquist's disappearance, and on February 13, his remains were found. Responding to the family's criticisms, New York State Police said in a statement last month that they took appropriate investigative steps. The Ontario County Department of Social Services has not returned multiple requests for comment in recent weeks. When asked Wednesday if the Social Services Department was aware that Nordquist was being controlled by the suspects, as his family suggested, Wolford declined to comment.